On this fantasy continent, there are the Water Sect, who can create ice from water, the Earth Sect, who can control boulders weighing thousands of pounds, the Fire Sect, who can manipulate flames, and the Air Sect, who can fly and injure people with their breath. Once, these four nations lived in harmony, but the Fire Kingdom unified and ruled the world, breaking the peace of the continent. Only a supernatural being who is proficient in all four elements can save the world. But the reincarnation of this supernatural being, An-Ang, is still young, having mastered air and water, but not earth and fire. An-Ang's water elemental skills were still lacking. However, facing the soldiers of the Fire Kingdom was no problem at all. He was accompanied by Katara, the last water-wielding member of the aquatic tribe, and Katara's warrior brother, Sokka. The three of them displayed their supernatural powers, and these soldiers were no match for them. An-Ang's team rescued innocent civilians besieged by the Fire Kingdom. Near the end, the female warrior Suki joined the battle. She planned to save the world with An-Ang, but before that, An-Ang had to go to the Metal Tower. The city lord of the Earth Kingdom, Omas, was his friend, Bumi, who had been imprisoned there by the Fire Kingdom after his defeat. Bumi refused to leave and asked An-Ang to find a better Jade Earth Master. Defeating the Fire King was not easy. The Fire King and his daughter Azura were extremely ambitious. Their next step was to attack the capital of the Fire and Earth, Everlasting City. Once they took it, there would be no more fire and earth in the world. Azura made a very detailed and meticulous plan. The Fire King was satisfied with this, but instead of sending him to fight, he was put in charge of finding his exiled brother, Zook. He felt that Zook's return would affect his position. Azura had no choice but to accept the mission, but given his personality, he certainly wouldn't tolerate Zook's safe return. Zook, by now, had long since lost his rough edges. He hid with his guardian general, Elo. No matter how Elo tried to comfort and persuade him, Zook remained melancholy. Meanwhile, An-Ang's team led the people to a safe place to hide. They descended from the cliffside path, and then An-Ang and Katara used water manipulation to push the seawater to the sides. This sight stunned the people behind them. Some looked around in amazement, but unexpectedly, a fireball flew straight towards them. Fortunately, An-Ang intervened in time, allowing everyone to cross the sea safely. They initially thought it was the Fire Kingdom, but it turned out the Fire Kingdom was just to deal with the sea serpent. The serpent, for some inexplicable reason, didn't attack the people of the Fire Kingdom, but instead turned towards An-Ang's teammates. An-Ang quickly told everyone to leave first, leaving him to deal with the raging serpent. An-Ang was too small next to the serpent, and Sokka was afraid he would be eaten. Suki and the others threw weapons to launch a sneak attack, but this angered the serpent, resulting in a merciless spit attack. At the critical moment, Katara intervened. He was invincible in the water, instantly freezing the seawater and then delivering a heavy blow with his ice shield. At the same time, An-Ang lured the serpent over, letting it crash into a reef. The crisis was finally averted, but the serpent was half dead from the impact. Katara then used a healing spell on An-Ang. The two worked together to heal the sea serpent's severe injuries, and the sea serpent finally stopped its frenzied attacks. Their purpose for this trip, besides settling the people, was to find Master U2 to be An-Ang's teacher. However, that night, An-Ang received news that the Great Comet was about to reach its aphelion, at which time the power of the Fire Sect would increase 100-fold. More important than finding a teacher now was to go to Yongu City. They had to hurry to see King Tu Tian and tell him about the comet. At the same time, Azura was setting off to find Ge. He brought two subordinates, but he forced them to kill each other, otherwise he would kill them both. However, Azura did not kill them after counting, but only wanted to confirm whether they were trustworthy. He had a good plan to find Zuke, which was to first find General Shen Tong, because he knew that with Zuke's current situation, the only way out was to find An-Ang. The burly man who had never lost encountered a mysterious blind girl. He broke free from the blind girl's restraints in a second, but the blind girl drew circles again and controlled the earth to trap the burly man's feet and hands. However, the big guy wasn't to be trifled with. He attacked the blind girl with a sandstone, but the first attack was dodged, and he quickly followed up with another. Enraged by the insults, the big guy swung a massive boulder, weighing thousands of pounds, smashing it down on the blind girl. Everyone thought the blind girl was doomed, but suddenly, she won. Anang in the audience could no longer sit still. As a warrior who could save the world, his supernatural powers were now limited to air and water elements. Anang had always wanted to find a master of earth, to learn earth element, and now the blind girl was his best teacher. Although the blind girl couldn't see, she could hear everything underground. When she noticed Anang approaching, she immediately used her Earth Dunshu, a technique to escape underground, to leave. Anang was extremely disappointed. They had only arrived at the Earth sect's territory today, and having heard about the competition at the arena, they came to watch. They encountered that powerful blind girl. Fortunately, the blind girl had left. Later, the northern family invited Anang to be their guest. When they arrived at the northern family, they unexpectedly encountered the blind girl again. The blind girl was the daughter of a northern family. Tuofu dared not let his family know he had sneaked out to fight in the arena. Seeing Anang relentlessly pursuing him, he used his Jade Earth technique to humiliate Anang. Anang directly asked who the master who had taught Tuofu was, but Tuofu's parents seemed completely unaware. Tuofu had been secretly plotting against Anang. He left a message on the ground, "Meet in the garden that night." This silenced Anang. When they met alone, Tuofu revealed his secret. As a child, he ran away from home and hid in a cave, where he encountered a group of wild animals. He discovered he could sense their emotions through the ground, so he learned the Jade Earth technique from Huan Yan. Tuofu's family was very strict with him, hoping he would become a proper young lady. Anang saw Tuofu's yearning for freedom and tried to persuade him to join his team, but Tuofu refused. The next day, Anang's team members, Soka and Suchi, encountered trouble. They ran into the subordinates of the fire sect Princess Azura, who was searching for Anang, trying to find his brother, Zoko, through him. As warriors, Soka and Suchi were no match for the two. Fortunately, at the crucial moment, Kakara, enraged, punched him. At that moment, Nu arrived at the scene, and Azura's men quickly left. Meanwhile, Azura successfully found Zuko. Sure enough, he wanted to find Anang. Azura told him that the Fire Hunter King had pardoned him, but Zuko refused to return empty-handed, and wanted to take Anang away to prove his abilities. The two siblings fought Anang together, and Anang struggled greatly. Fortunately, the team members gathered at this moment, first ambushing Zuko, and then dealing with him. Anang and Tofu also joined the battle. He enjoyed fighting alongside them. Now the team, only Jade Tiger Master was missing. An extra hand appeared before Zuko. It was General Alo, who had been with him for many years. Tensions were high. Even the mighty Azura couldn't defeat so many people. He raised his hand to surrender, but the next second, Azura fled the scene. Tatara wanted to treat Alo, but Zuko wouldn't allow it. He approached. After this battle, Tofu decided to join An's team and save the world with them. When his mother came looking for him, he no longer obeyed her wishes and acted like a good girl. His angry mother directly brought in a big guy and had him and the butler take Tofu back. Tofu, now Anang's Earth Elemental teacher, plans to use this opportunity to summon Anang. A large man swings a boulder at Anang, who quickly dodges, but is unable to control the Earth Element to retaliate. Despite the man's constant hints, Tofu and Anang enter Everlasting City, but at the city wall, he senses the presence of Katara. It turns out Katara and his sworn brothers dared not come, but were controlled by the soldiers here. Fortunately, Tofu reveals his identity as the Northern Heiress, allowing everyone to escape. Meanwhile, Zuko begins studying with Iroh, but with Huo Liebo constantly at war, the two are forced to flee with the people of the Earth Clan onto a ship. This ship can enter Everlasting City, which happens to be the location of Anang and his companions. To meet the Earth Clan King, one must cultivate good relations with the officials of Yongu City. Judy and Changfeng are among those they need to protect. When Anang and his companions finally managed to attend the banquet hosted by the king, the conversation turned to trivial matters. He wanted to tell the king about the Great Comet, but the king had no intention of listening to him. While waiting for an audience, Anang spent his days learning about the Earth Clan from Tofu. Yongu City appeared safe, but it was in reality in chaos. The people who had fled from Uncle Oma hated the Fire Clan. However, Yongu City not only housed Prince Zook of the Fire Clan and former General Iroh, but also another group of soldiers who had defected from the Fire Clan. Zook received news that Uncle Oma's men would attack the Fire Clan soldiers that night. He approached a Fire Clan general, hoping to temporarily evade capture, but the reply he received was, the general refused to leave because he didn't think he was wrong. He believed that if he hadn't betrayed the Fire Clan, even more people would have died in Omar City. Unfortunately, the people of Omar didn't think that way. Recently, something happened in the city, and they blamed it on the Fire Clan. That night, they besieged the Fire Clan general's territory, wanting revenge for their dead relatives and friends. The Fire Clan members couldn't use fire elements, so they lost their ability to resist. At the critical moment, a masked man arrived to help. He was none other than Zuko, who had come to persuade the general during the day. Zuko was surprised that Katara was also there. Why would he help the Fire Clan? Zuko couldn't understand. Meanwhile, Anang met General Sun on the outer city wall. General Sun told Anang a secret. Anang had recently been getting close to two officials, Judy and Changfeng, but he didn't know that these two were actually Dai Li Jun. Dai Li Jun controlled all affairs in the city. Without their approval, Anang would never see the king. Rather than waiting, he decided to tell General Sun what he needed to convey to the king. General Sun is more trustworthy than Changfeng, but tonight, an uninvited guest has entered Yongu City. Princess Azura of the Fire Sect and two of her subordinates, disguised as Void Warriors, easily fooled the guards on the outer city wall, with the bound Fire Sect general in tow. Azura disguised herself as Shu Ziwu and infiltrated the Earth Sect's Yongu City. She quickly discovered Yongu City's weakness. Its forces were divided into two parts. The outer city wall was commanded by General Sun, while the inner city was controlled by Changfeng. Changfeng wanted to sideline the king and completely seize supreme power. Therefore, even knowing that Huo Zongyao had launched a war, he still kept it a secret from the king. Anang and his group had been in Yongu City for so long without being able to speak with the king. Helpless, they had to take a different approach and choose to meditate and enter the spirit sword. This was a soul-leaving technique from the east, where the body remained still, but the soul could enter another world. Anang and his companions were initially denied entry to the critical library, which contained numerous books detailing the weaknesses of each sect. Fortunately, Professor Ku provided a valuable map, temporarily granting them entry. The library had many librarians, and with their help, Tofu was the first to pinpoint the Fire Sect's weakest point. When that day arrived, the Fire Sect would completely lose its lustful abilities. This meant that if they attacked the Fire Sect on that day, they could quickly end the war on this continent. While the group was overjoyed, the Fire Sect Prince, Zook, discovered their bodies. Zook could have killed them all, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. Anang and his companions successfully returned to their bodies. To inform the king, they hid inside a large wine vat, and with General Sun's help, entered the palace. That night, they successfully met the king, who only wanted to cultivate his garden, which was why he allowed Changfeng to control the court. Even after Anang and his companions revealed the impending war and summoned General Sun as a witness, the king still didn't believe them. General Sun had betrayed them. His family was threatened by Changfeng, forcing him to side with Changfeng. Taking advantage of the situation, Changfeng stepped forward to sow discord, accusing Katara of stealing at the banquet and inciting unrest outside. Changfeng also accused Tofu's family of profiting from the war, further eroding the king's trust in them. After leaving the palace, Anang's team got into an argument. Anang was unaware of Katara's actions, and Tofugari's production of war machines for the Fire Kingdom was also unknown to Katara and his team. The team disbanded. Katara and Zuko went to uphold justice, only to be led astray by well-prepared soldiers. Tofu returned to the north, and his family ceased involvement in the external conflicts. Anang was in a state of collapse and depression, completely unaware that all members except Tofu had been captured. Now, Azura had completely taken control of Yongu City. By the time Anang learned of his friend's situation, the only one who could fight alongside him was Aino. The two opened the dungeon entrance and rescued everyone. But just as they were about to leave, Azura arrived. He wanted to personally eliminate the gambler, so that he would be the sole heir to the Fire Sect. Zuko was no match for him, but the blue flame was right in front of Zuko, and Azura couldn't bring himself to do it. He didn't want to fight his own brother, as the Fire King demanded. In the end, Azura chose to let Zuko go, and went out to hunt down the escaped Anna. It wasn't easy for Azura to fight two opponents at once. At the critical moment, the gambler joined the battle, but he wasn't there to help Anna and the others. He was there to help his sister. In this battle, what would become of Anna? Anang was at a disadvantage, as Zukor was able to fight Katara to a draw, leaving Anang to face Azura alone. He transformed the surrounding ice crystals into armor, but this proved utterly ineffective against Azura's blue flames. The battle intensified, and Azura's reinforcements arrived. Anang's team was powerless to resist, so he forcibly activated his second star platform, using his powerful divine energy. In this state, Anang was invincible. He easily dodged Azura's Blue Palace attacks, neutralized the attacks of her minions with a single move, and then returned them all. Azura, refusing to accept defeat, was utterly defeated by Anang. Anang grabbed him by the neck and forcefully threw him to the ground. Slowly walking to his side, she intended to unleash her ultimate attack. Her divine power was gradually dissipating. Angela seized the opportunity to strike with all her might. If Anang died in his psychic state, the cycle of reincarnation would cease, and without divine power, humanity could not be saved. Katara quickly stepped forward and picked Anang up. Angela tried to launch another sneak attack, but was blocked by flames. Katara used a water shield, and they left, allowing the entire Eternal City to be occupied by the Fire Cult soldiers. Anang was powerless to save it. The team members reunited. Even Tuofu, back in the north, broke free from his mother's control and escaped. They wanted to wake Anang, but Anang briefly opened his eyes before falling back into a deep sleep.